Hello and welcome to Awaz News. I'm Kubra Ali and I'll be taking you through big news across Canada. Honda to build electric vehicles and battery plant in Ontario, sources say. Some of gold stolen during airport heist was melted down in basement of GTA jewelry store, police. Two men charged after allegedly selling fake cell phones in the Toronto area for years. Canada to force plastic makers to report how much they make, reuse, and recycle. Two suspects wanted after Richmond Hill currency exchange robbed at gunpoint. Seeing non-committal on keeping scheduled increases to Liberals' carbon price in place. Toronto cherry blossoms in Hyde Park expected to reach peak bloom on Monday. These were the headlines, and let's jump right into the details. The cherry blossoms in Hyde Park are expected to bloom right on schedule this week. Peak bloom, which is when more than 70% of the blossoms are open, is expected to begin on April 22nd and last for about 4 to 10 days depending on the weather conditions. We are on track, we are on schedule, Rohit Rao, Fundraising and Communications Director at the Hyde Park Nature Centre, told Awaz News last week. Peak bloom typically happens between late April and early May, and we are still on that schedule. Rao said that if the city has cooler temperatures during the peak bloom period, people will be able to see the blossoms for a longer period of time, which is what happened last year. Japan's ambassador to Canada, Tori Hagiwara, gifted the city 2,000 Somyo Ishino sakura trees in 1959 on behalf of the citizens of the Tokyo in appreciation of Toronto accepting relocated Japanese Canadians following the Second World War. The blossoms now typically draw hundreds of thousands of visitors to park every year. The blooms are a great sign of the arrival spring, Rao said. The blossoms are heavily dependent on the late winter and early spring temperatures. Rao said that they initially progressed quickly due to very warm temperatures. Currently, the blossoms are stage 4 of the blooming process, which is when the flower stems get longer and the individual blossoms can be clearly seen. The blossoms are very vulnerable to frost at this point. During the next stage, which happens typically 4 to 6 days before peak bloom, fluffy white sakura blossoms emerge with each flower opening at different times. At the final stage, stage 6, peak bloom begins with the majority of blossoms open. Honda Canada is set to build an electric vehicle battery plant near its auto manufacturing facility in Alliston, Ontario, where it also plans to produce fully electric vehicles, the Canadian press has learned. Senior sources with information on project confirmed the federal and Ontario governments will make the announcement this week, but were not yet able to give any dollar figures. However, comments Monday from Ontario Doug Ford and Economic Development Minister Vic Fedeli suggest it is worth around $14 billion or $15 billion project. Ford told the First Nations conference that there will be an announcement this week about a new deal he said will be double the size of Volkswagen deal announced last year. That EV battery plant, set to be built in St. Thomas, Ontario, comes with a $7 billion capital price tag. Fedeli would not confirm if Ford was referencing Honda, but spoke coyly after question period Monday about the amount of the electric vehicle investment in province. Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's recent budget announced a 10% electric vehicle supply chain investment tax credit on the cost of buildings related to EV production as long as business invests in assembly, battery production, and cathode active material production in Canada. That's on top of an existing 30% clean technology manufacturing investment tax credit on the cost of investments in new machinery and equipment. Honda's deal also involves two key parts suppliers for their batteries, cathodes, and separators, with the locations of those facilities elsewhere in Ontario set to be announced at a later date. The deal comes after years of meetings and discussions between Honda executives and the Ontario government, the sources said. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Premier Doug Ford, and Honda executives were on hand in March 2022 in Alliston when the Japanese automaker announced hybrid production at the facility with $131.6 billion in assistance from each of two levels of government. Around the time of that announcement, conversations began about a large potential investment into electric vehicles, the sources said, and negotiations began that summer. reportedly traveled to Japan that fall, the first of three visits to meet with Honda Motor executives about the project. Senior officials from the company in Japan also traveled in Toronto 3 times to meet the government officials, including twice with Ford. Honda approached the federal government a few months ago, senior government officials said, and Freeland led her government's negotiations with the company. The project is expected to involve the construction of several plants, according to the source. One suspect has been charged in connection with a violent gunpoint robbery at a Richmond Hill currency exchange last month. The holdup happened on March 15 at about 11 a.m. near Yonge Street and Major Mackenzie Drive. York Regional Police said that 3 suspects, at least one of whom was armed with a gun, entered the business and demanded cash. The suspects then allegedly assaulted a victim before fleeing with merchandise from the business, they said. Police said that the victim was taken to the hospital where he was treated and released. On April 17, YRP executed a search warrant at a home in Ajax and arrested a male suspect in connection with the incident. At that time, they also allegedly located a quantity of cocaine and fentanyl, as well as ammunition and an extended magazine for a firearm. Josiah Barcoats, 21, of Ajax, has been charged with 5 offenses, including robbery with a firearm. Police say that they are still looking for 2 outstanding suspects. Those individuals are both described as black males who are approximately 30 years old, with average build and between 5'7" and 6 feet in height. Both were last seen wearing hooded sweaters, dark-colored pants, and face masks, police say. At least some of the gold bars stolen during the heist at Pearson Airport 1 year ago was likely melted down in the basement of Toronto area jewelry store, Peel Police tell Awaz News. Last week, investigators held a news conference on the 1-year anniversary of the heist, announcing that 5 suspects has been arrested and 4 others are facing charges in connection with the largest gold theft in Canadian history. Police said the suspects faced a total of 19 charges, and Canada-wide warrants have been issued for the arrest of 3 of the suspects who have not been apprehended. 1 former and 1 current Air Canada employee are among the suspects, as well as a Toronto jewelry store owner, police said. During last week's news conference, police shared images of smelting equipment that was seized during the investigation. In a statement to Awaz News on Monday, police said that equipment, which is used to change the composition of gold, was found in the basement of the GTA jewelry store. Police have also said that the only gold recovered from the heist was melted down and fashioned into 6 gold bracelets worth an estimated $89,000. The gold, along with amount about $2.5 million in foreign currency, was shipped to Toronto from Zurich in the hull of an Air Canada plane on April 17, 2023. The shipment was offloaded to an Air Canada cargo facility shortly after the flight landed at Pearson Airport that afternoon. Police allege that a suspect driving a 5-ton delivery truck came into possession of the gold and banknotes after presenting Air Canada personnel with a fraudulent airway bill. Peel Regional Police Chief Nishan Durepa previously said that the heist was carefully planned by a well-organized group of criminals. Police have charged 2 men with more than 40 collective offenses after they allegedly sold fake cell phones using Facebook Marketplace over a 3-year period in the Toronto area. A new release issued by the Toronto Police Service on Monday said investigators believe the men have been advertising Apple iPhones for sale using the platform and would then meet potential victims. The products only resembled iPhones, according to police, or customers were allegedly given cell phone boxes that contained rice and sand. Investigators allege some customers were provided with fake receipts. Several of the interactions resulted in physical altercations, police said. In this case, the victims were struck and robbed of their cash, investigators allege. The suspects would then flee the area in white Honda Civic, they added. On Friday, officers with TPS 51 Division executed 3 search warrants in the Toronto area and Peel region. Brampton resident Joanne Martin, 25, and Mississauga resident Jeremiah Stout, 25, were subsequently placed into custody. Together, the two accused are facing more than 40 charges, including 13 counts of fraud each. The charges have not been tested in court. They are scheduled to make their first appearance in court on April 22nd at 10 a.m. Leader Jagmeet Singh is raising eyebrows and new over his carbon pricing stance, refusing to say today whether or not he would keep scheduled increases in place if he becomes Prime Minister. The federal carbon price is set to rise to $170 per ton of carbon dioxide or equivalent by 2030. Singh says his party will be putting forward its own plan, but he isn't saying whether that includes maintaining the current system. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has made repealing carbon price a focal point of his campaigning, saying it's contributing to the cost of living. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government's carbon price puts back more money into most people's pockets while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. As both leaders remain firm in their positions, Singh has refused to explicitly say whether or not he supports the current carbon price framework despite running on it in the 2019 election. On Monday, he deflected questions about the carbon pricing by attacking Poilievre, accusing him of having no environmental plan. What we have said, our plan that we will put forward is one that is fair for working people, takes on the big polluters, and lowers our emissions, Singh said. Canada is seeking to get a better handle on how much plastic is being produced in the country by forcing companies that make it to report annually on what they produce. Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault is announcing the National Plastics Registry the day before negotiations from a global treaty to end plastic waste gets underway in Ottawa. Guilbeault is a key player in the talks which aim to establish an international agreement to eliminate plastic waste by 2040. Canadians throw away more than 4 million tons of plastic every year, and less than 1/10 of it is actually recycled. The registry will first apply to makers of plastic packaging, electronics, and single-use plastic products, with plans to extend in later years to cover producers of resins, tires, and agricultural products. They will be required to report every year on how much plastic they make and where those products end up. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Kubra Ali. I'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a good night.